Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ahdurin region. I'm your host, Ahdurin himself. Today, we're doing another Pokemon Challenge video, the first one in a long time since the Can I Beat Fire Red with the Worst Pokemon in History challenge that I created. Must have been a year ago or something like that. This is a new challenge in my favorite game, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explores the Sky, with a twist, however. It's not so much a challenge as it is kind of just a thought experiment of whether we can beat the game with Team Skull. Now, Team Skull, many of us know Team Skull as the quote unquote evil team in Generation 7, the Alola bad guys that are kind of just a squad of people that have been misunderstood all these times. But there was a Team Skull before the Alola game Team Skull, and that is the Team Skull in the Mystery Dungeon Time, Darkness, and Sky games. Team Skull consists of a Coughing, a Zubat, who you can see right here on the screen, and their boss, a Skuntank. And I wanted to go through this with that team. So I start off with myself as the Coughing and my partner as the Zubat. Skuntank will get a little bit later and will join the team to add additional benefits when we get to that point. But for now, we're going to check out if we can beat this game with Team Skull. And to make it slightly more challenging, or at least I thought it would be more challenging, we start off with the weaker Pokemons of Coughing and Zubat, though you'll notice soon afterwards that it's not quite exactly what I expected to go into it. So the entirety of Beach Cave, I'm going to go through it here itself, and you can kind of see how everything's broken down. For one thing, and this is something that's interesting to note, both Coughing and Zubat are able to go over the water terrains, which can make travel significantly easier. Not only can they go over water terrain, they can kind of go over most hazards as well without too much concern. Also, I very much enjoy this entire conversation and every interaction with Team Skull, as it's like, we have the shy version of our Team Skull team, which is us, and then the actual threats of the real Team Skull out there. This battle, not really that difficult. If we use moves, they won't, and that kind of ends up with the victory there. Again, just the conversation here that we see is hilarious of just other versions of ourselves being like, oh, you're terrible at what you do. What? But I'm that guy. Anyway, we flash forward. I'm going to do this entire challenge. We're cutting up portions of it. If you want to check out the full run, you can check it out down in the description below. There should be a link to the entire run kind of sped up. Of course, we gotta name ourselves Team Skull. I mean, we are Team Skull. It's a good name. It suits us, quite literally, as Zubat tells us. We could definitely continuing to give us more items in here. We flash forward now over to Drench Bluff, as I wanted to share something a little bit interesting here as we level up. Notice here that not all stats are boosting. You saw only some of my defensive stats were boosting as a Coughing, and Zubat only got a couple HP points boost. That's kind of the biggest issue that early game me had to figure out, was that unlike the starter Pokemon and many Pokemon out there, we don't actually get to take advantage of full starter bonuses. We don't get to take advantage of level up bonuses that impact all the stats. Instead, it's kind of going to impact a few at random times, which is going to be an interesting look. Also, very funny here, the food eating mechanic, since there is no eating version of Coughing and Zubat, it's just us kind of like asleep, which I found very hilarious. So flash forward over to the Drowsy battle here as we go over. Hopefully, by the way, I didn't mention this at the beginning, spoilers for the game. We haven't reached the spoiler section yet, but spoilers for the game. The next first official boss battle here, if you don't count the Team Skull battle initially, is this battle against Drowsy, and Drowsy being a Psychic-type Pokemon could be incredibly complicated to work with. There are no extra rules around this. The only big rule was just use Team Skull and only Team Skull members. There's no limit on Reviver Seeds or special abilities or anything like that, and as you can see here, I'm going to take full advantage of that, because this was kind of just a trial run to see what exactly we could do here. The poison gas strategy that I do here, very interesting, though ultimately not very effective, because my idea is kind of just chuck stuff while Zubat goes for Leech Life. As you can see here, the Oran Berry that we have. I usually go into these runs with only one item aspect at a time, not really trying to plan for anything. And then surprisingly, we kind of just bodied. Leech Life doing Leech Life things, and eventually we were successful here. That's the first boss battle down with Drowsy. The other recruit members here, I'm showing this off to kind of share. While I will be accepting other recruits, I'm trying not to actually use them. I just kind of wanted to see how many recruits we would get without really trying to look for recruits, which you'll find out a little bit later on in the episode. And then, of course, we need to unlock this to be able to get our final member of the team, the real boss, Skuntank, a very important character that is kind of important to Team Skull, because without Skuntank, Team Skull isn't really a thing. Funnily enough, I recorded this weeks ago, prior to me using Skuntank on a Pokemon Sword and Shield Nuzlocke Solok run, to be exact, with a friend of mine. His YouTube channel is Lumishen, and at that point, didn't really like Skuntank, especially partly because he's the antagonist in this game, and then Jupiter in the Diamond Pearl games. Didn't really like it that much. Now, I've been using a Skuntank. I can see where the appeal is. It's kind of cool. It's kind of nice. Skuntank, pretty good, as you can see here. Now that we've unlocked the recruit mechanic for folks, we're going to be recruiting people, but ultimately not too big of a deal. That's kind of just for me to hold on to and kind of see how many people we actually recruit here. A lot of animations are interesting as well. That's another reason why I want to do this. Coughing, for example, when it's pulling on the gem, kind of just stares at it for a while. Well, at least Zubat is attempting to hit it in some way, which is another cool thing to look at, just how the animations work for everything with all the different characters and switching out the normal starters who have actual animations built for these type of situations, as opposed to, Coughing and Zubat and other things. Pushing on it, for example, kind of just hovers over it, and then the wave flushes forward, kicks us out. You can see kind of on the bottom screen there, us floating a little bit, and then eventually reaching the hot springs here, where we're kind of just vibing. I mean, Zubat's barely in the water. I think if you want to count its tail? Feet? Does Zubat have feet? All right, never mind, ignoring that. And then Coughing, half of me is submerged under the water, but just kind of, again, vibing out here at the hot springs. We shift over now to another meeting with Team Skull. This, part of the reason why I wanted to do this, because I actually initially started off with Skuntank as myself, and then I believe I flipped a coin and made Coughing the partner, though I'm not 100% sure. That came to this point and really wanted this scene to be perfectly matched, though that did mean that the initial Beach Cave matchup wasn't as perfectly synced as well. This entire concept is just hilarious of just, you're a scaredy cat, I know what you're like. And then, of course, we unlock the ability to get our real big boss when we get the Chief coming in here. And of course, the Chief here, you can smell him now with Skuntank coming down, somehow using a poison move on me, and then I just kind of stall there, as opposed to having a knockout mechanic. Zubat gonna move off to the side. I was gonna say slink off to the side a bit. But yeah, now that Skuntank has been unlocked, this is where the point that I wanted to get Skuntank was when Skuntank was introduced in the game. I could have gotten it a little bit earlier, but decided not to. But instead, now that we've met Skuntank, I will go and eventually do a Wondermail mission, just generating it, allowing me to unlock Skuntank as an individual to join us on the team. So Skuntank will join us on all of those missions and all of the situations, as many as I could, where Skuntank and additional members would be allowed to join. If I could bring a member in, I would bring Skuntank in. Otherwise, I would just go with us two. And if you play through the games, you'll know there are situations where it's mainly you and the partner that are allowed to go somewhere, while every other additional member are forced to stay behind. There's enough of them that eventually having Skuntank wasn't particularly beneficial. And you'll notice, maybe if I remember to put it in, Skuntank's level up bonuses are even worse than the ones that we get. While we get some stats from multiples, Skuntank doesn't really get a lot here. But here we are, Skuntank joined the team. I didn't even check to see the gender of Skuntank to see if it matches up with the presumable male Skuntank. I think they've referred to Skuntank as a male on Team Skull, on the real Team Skull, not our Team Skull. But this one is as well. Also, this was a fun moment where I had back-to-back-to-back missions of people that wanted to join the team, which was very hilarious. We flash forward to Apple Woods, where Team Skull is looking for perfect apples, only to be meeting up with, as you'll see in a bit, Team Skull. Very hilariously done here. As we can see, this is exactly what I wanted to see. It's not quite the same style, version of everything. Not everyone's in the right place. But man, doesn't it feel fun to look at Team Skull trying to battle Team Skull and having an argument with themselves? How people tell the difference between different Pokemon in this universe remains a mystery to me, but I am nevertheless fascinated by it. Again, after this conversation here, our Zubat friend notices that their Zubat friend ain't really all that, and so now we get to that point where the noxious gas attack, noxious gas combo, that's it, that somehow affects all three poison Pokemon here, in Zubat, Coughing, and myself, also affects that Zubat, which I guess makes sense in the Zubat perspective. Makes sense that my partner Zubat is unable to function, but I feel like I as a poison type and Skuntank behind me as a poison type would be successful. So you can see here, this is another thing that I found interesting. There's a back animation for them to be able to eat the apples, but there isn't a front animation, which was very curious. Is this turning into an animation breakdown? Maybe, but nevertheless, all the joyfulness. Let's see, my favorite Pokemon, in case you guys don't know, is Wigglytuff, and so this scene hits me because yeah, how dare you not bring Wigglytuff the items that they requested? Everything explodes until we join, and then we push ourselves. It's dawning on me that maybe I should have switched Zubat and Coughing, because there are more instances where we're pushing ourselves away as opposed to the opposite. But, we'll see. We move on now to Mount Horn here. This was a fun moment. This is the first time that I fainted in a dungeon, and you can see where in just a moment here. The power of distance moves. Silver Wind, which is basically ancient power for bug types. Oh, wait, you thought that one was fine? No, first off, we got an exploding Pineco over there. And then second off, as you'll see in a moment, that Venomoth, not really a fan of what we do here. Silverwind knocks us out. This is on the journey to the expedition. As you can see, Bidoof is with us as well. Eventually, we flash forward, get through all the talking, go through the forest. We go to Fogbound Lake, and here's Team Skull once again, ready to disrupt us. Now, as a reminder, in this specific journey, we're not allowed to bring any teammates with us, which is why Skuntank is behind us in this particular moment. Noxious Gas combo in a moment, but wait for this. Wigglytuff, who has the ability somehow to not be a fairy type, because fairy types didn't exist. So the poison gas combo would not be as effective as it is in modern day if this game was to be remade and the fairy type would be brought back. We move on over to continuing our journey while Team Skull old version wants to pick a fight with Wigglytuff. Big mistake. Team Skull's gonna get the prize. Oh no. Some of these dialogue things I'm seeing after a while, and I find it hilarious. Coughing, it's like, oh no, Team Skull's gonna get the prize. Oh no, we can't let them have that. Wigglytuff's really gonna get it. Yeah, not really. Wigglytuff, powerful all the same. Here's our next boss battle. As you may know, we fight off against Groudon. You might know, Groudon being a ground type, not great for us poison bug flying folks. While Groudon might not necessarily be able to hit us with ground type moves, I don't even think Groudon has ground type moves. I'm not 100% sure what Groudon's moveset is. Here's old Team Skull that's completely knocked out, and Wigglytuff decided to push them off to the side, or maybe the blast just shifted them over. Who knows what that case is. Nevertheless, here we go. Fogbound Lake battle time against Groudon. As we can see here, I got to show the entire cutscene as we talk about, Groudon's a legendary Pokemon, full of myths and power. If you face them, you're doomed. And so we're facing him. Facing them. Facing it. We're doomed. Or are we? So, yeah, what's the strategy here? Well, you'll notice Coughing has one move that's very, very useful here. And if you're a Mystery Dungeon fan, you know how that is. And that is Smokescreen. That in combination with Supersonic here basically makes this battle more or less a joke. Smokescreen has the ability to make Groudon a whiffer, which basically means that almost, if not all the moves, will flat out miss for a period of time. Mystery Dungeon has a lot of mechanics that if they were transferred to the main games would make them busted, but in this universe where different Pokemon and multiple Pokemon are able to make a bunch of actions at the same time, and the fact that boss battles tend to have significantly higher health compared to everybody else, means that this is going to turn more into me playing support as I try to Smokescreen all the time, while Zubat does the big damage, occasionally throwing some confusions here and there. Trying to make sure that we don't get hit by Ancient Power or any of these other one-hit KO moves that, like Slash, for example, here. We have the Gravel Rocks to be able to do distance damage in case Groudon's special IQ skill that allows it to step back when it misses a move. We have the distance ability there. Assurance on my end, which I believe does extra damage if the Pokemon's health is less than half. So I'm just waiting for it to get below half and then really doing additional damage there. Gravel Rocks are always 20 damage, and so that's just a massive boost considering I'm doing like 5 damage here and there. And a continuation after this over and over and over again for a very long time, almost running out of smoke screens here, as you can see. So I was a little bit nervous at this point, but of course, Max Elixir powers as it steps back. Zubat running out of Bite as well. Which could have helped us because the order of this game isn't based on speed. It goes your character, your partners and allies, and then after that, the villain, antagonist, whatever you want to go with here. But eventually we are able to beat Groudon, find out that there's a time gear at the top of that lake, and move on with our life. Continuing forward, we flash forward to the next boss battle at Plains. We're able to bring Skuntank with us this time. And you can see here the squad of Electrike and Manectric here. Are we able to win this? We've linked off Skuntank's moves here, allowing it to screech and then scratch away, which is definitely beneficial here. I will make a big mistake in about 12 seconds here, but for now, we let everybody come to us, as is the strategy here. My strategy, of course, is going to be very focused on being the support person, while Skuntank and Zubat are more of the attackers, mainly because of my ability to use Smokescreen, which is a very, very good move. The biggest issue here, as you can probably tell, is the fact that this battle is currently, I believe, 3 on 9? 3 on 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Yep, 3 on 9 battle. Not ideal, especially considering that more Pokemon in a battle makes it beneficial for that team with higher, quantity is definitely better than quality in this situation. While we might be better off as a team, we're definitely not better off as a unit of number of people, because everybody's able to do all sorts of things, all sorts of different moves that allow for just complete domination. We're using up multiple Reviver Seeds here. All 3 of us faint at one point. While that does recover some power points, that's not necessarily going to help us here. Most of the Electrikes have around 80 to 100 health, if I'm not mistaken, and Manectric probably has somewhere in the 200 range, which, not ideal in the situation. Here's what I make the mistake, if I'm not mistaken, where I try to hit behind a rock is effectively what the situation is. As you can see, that rock right there prevents me from being able to actually hit Manectric with any moves that don't cut corners. That's technically considered a corner, which means I wasted a move there. And that more or less kind of exemplified, yeah, this isn't going to go out well. No matter how much we try here, the quick attack there, we've got to attack this Electrike here. I'm trying to think of any strategy that I can use, but frankly, we're out of beads. I try to get Zubat to go away. Figure out something, anything to get Zubat moving out of the picture, because Zubat is the one that's in the biggest problem situation here. Nevertheless, we go down, and that's our first loss to a boss battle, our second loss overall, and we're not great level-wise either. I mean, in the high teens is a little low for where we want to be here, but we try again. As you can flash forward here, we'll just continue on with this sort of cutscene here. I'm trying to think why I left this back in. Oh gosh. Oh well. This matchup itself, we try it off this time. Second time is the charm, maybe. Here, we'll see what we can do. I'm better equipped. I think I have more Reviver Seeds, better situation, as you can tell. Moved a few moves around. Now Skuntank also has Smokescreen, which is definitely beneficial as well, because that's been the strategy for the majority of this game. If we can Smokescreen the opponent, then they're really not going to be able to do anything at all. And then I have to use my ability to cut corners to a significant advantage here. Skuntank, you can start to see already Skuntank not being as beneficial as I'd like. While it is evolved and therefore more powerful, it doesn't get nearly as much level up bonus as the basic Pokemon do, and I'm wondering, I haven't done the research for this, but I'm wondering if that's actually a mechanic built into the game so that when you evolve, it's like, okay, now that you finally evolved, this is where you're done. And there's a number of ways to boost your stats afterwards, like with gummies and drinks at Spinta's Cafe, or other item boosting things like proteins and iron for defense and other items like that. But for the most part, level up bonuses, frankly, aren't really where you get most of the bonuses. You get the bonuses from using all of the other resources that are around you. At this point in the battle, as I've kind of just ignored her for a second, most of the Electrike are down. We've gotten multiple of them confused. There's Electrikes, the Manectric is whiffered at this point, so it's not even focusing on where it's going, let alone what it's able to do. And then at a certain point here, I don't think we've used more than one Reviver Seed. I continue my Smoke Screen. Skuntank continues Smoke Screening. Zubat's being the real offensive threat here. And eventually, as you can see here, we get both of these Pokemon down. Skuntank continuing to be the whiffer friend here. Multiple Smoke Screens really do help out, along with the linked moves that Skuntank has, where it's able to link Screech and Scratch, which lowers the defenses and then immediately attacks physically, which is, of course, very beneficial as well. We win this battle. Dustnoir comes in, saves us from the squad of electric Pokemon here, and then eventually runs away. Dustnoir, really appreciative of everything here. Now, we get the final instance. That's not the final instance. It's one of the last instances of Team Skull showing up, as Dustnoir kind of just sniffs them out, probably literally, with the Skuntank here. Again, How does Dustnoir tell the difference between us? I'm not 100% sure, but I'm rolling with it. They run away, and we are successful at the end of the day. Successful in beating Ant Plains. We get to save Azuro's little water float and everything like that. Um, and learn more about the specific items and everything like that that we had to deal with. Dustnor informs to us what exactly the dimensional stream is, which is a massive ability that we have throughout this entire game, kind of spoiling, how this entire run works and everything about this game by talking about the dimensional stream and the fact that we were a former human with this ability. Fun fact, this little thing here, that little snicker right there, I didn't notice that when I first played through this game. I didn't even realize that the very first time I played through this game. When it came out, I think I got it, like when it came out in that week Spanish, maybe a couple weeks afterwards. Sky was, I had not played Time or Darkness when I got Sky, but when I got it, I did not know the plot twist. And so when it happened, I was very, very surprised. Also, here, as we shift over to another situation, bam, right there, got that big winnings, which is very exciting. This entire segment, I didn't notice this because I've never had a teammate that was already set up to join me, I guess, sitting in a cafe. But when they come over and that the Ludicolo pops out, I didn't realize that they would actually run away at that point. We flash forward some more over to the northern desert, bringing the entire team here. At this point, now we're searching for time gears to make sure that we can stop Grovyle. Setting everything up here, but you'll notice this does not go how I want to, and this is really where we start getting to the point where we are struggling immensely. In the combination, we're going up against a ground-type gym, or not ground-type gym, I'm thinking this is the main series, a ground-type group dungeon, that's what I'm thinking of. A ground-type dungeon, and Fury Swipes. As you know, multi-hit moves in the Mystery Dungeon games are incredibly difficult to beat. Apparently, Cacnea fall into the same boat as well, which, not ideal here. You can see another situation. You can see Skuntank has already fainted at this point. At any point in time, if Skuntank was on the team and fainted, because this wasn't really a challenge run so much as just kind of a fun run to do, I let it be fainted and didn't count it as the end of the battle there. So in this situation, Skuntank had already fainted at this point, and we were traveling through continuously. Got a new recruit, not going to stay on the team for long. Here's Carnivine as well. And you can probably tell why based on my terminology here and the way that I'm phrasing everything, but we don't exactly finish this floor. Right, despite everything that's going on, we're eventually not going to finish it. And you might be wondering, wait, what do you mean you don't finish it? The stairs are right there, but, and this is one of those instances that I have to, I'm a completionist. If I see items, I have to grab them, despite the fact that the stairs were right there. And I could have just moved forward without a thought. I instead went for the grimy food and poke. Grimy food, an item that's not even necessary, potentially harmful, and poke, which you can get literally anywhere, and decide to do this. So not great. We continue on with another travel here against a Sandshrew who have been fighting us with these Fury Swipes forever. And despite everything that we do, despite all those efforts, all that fun times, traveling forward, we still end up losing to a Larvitar and Rock Slide. Not ideal. So after this point, I was deciding, hey, we need to train. We got to train properly. We got to train well. And the best place to train, in my opinion, is the Dragon Maze here. Now, this is just an overall period here. You can see as well the fact that Skuntank, while I'm trying to train up Skuntank, it's not really leveling up in the same way that we are sooner or later, and especially with how the story goes. Skuntank isn't just going to be very effective. I'm actually doing the Ghost Maze right now because I think I was just going completion. Eventually, I'll go and just work on the Dragon Maze over and over again. As you can see here, we eventually reach level 21, which is a solid place to be. And I think the Dragon Maze is best because a lot of the Dragon Pokemon that are here are actually really good at giving experience. So, sure enough, we're able to move on to the end of that dungeon, get to the Quicksand phase here, and after a few moments, eventually leave because, that's how the story goes. We have to head back, and then we realize, oh, wait, maybe the lake isn't actually where a lake is. This is actually where I was doing some training because I'd realized that leveling up needed to happen at this point. Being level 23 at this point with the team that we have, not exactly ideal. We're doing a boss battle here. Corsola knowing Ancient Power, not really great for a Zubat that is weak to rock types. Eventually, though, we do make it to the underground lake with Skuntank in tow. Look at the time gear. Wow, that's great, but as you know, there's a boss battle here. Sure enough, we in some way have a miscommunication with Mesprit and decided battle Mesprit because that was the best idea we had in mind. So Mesprit, another psychic type, and that's another thing that you may recognize. There's a lot of psychic type Pokemon that are boss battles here. We've had Drowsy, we're having Mesprit. There's a few others that are not ideal as well. Kind of ultimately going to be impactful here, but the power of items will save the day here. Through the strategy, you can see Air Cutter as another move that Zubat has learned. Skuntank is kind of just vibing, I'm going to be honest, at a certain point. The X-Ray Seed there doesn't really work. We get knocked out initially via Reviver Seed to revive ourselves. Smokescreen is the new strategy, and after a while, it's going to turn into basically a combination of Skuntank using Screech and Scratch at the same time, me making sure that Mesprit is constantly smokescreened at all times, and Zubat using the bug moves and Leech Life and everything like that to take advantage of the fact that Mesprit is weak to that. Mesprit loses, but the real villain comes in place instead, Grovyle. We decide not to battle and just kind of faint. So does Mesprit. Grovyle just dives into the water. Well, actually, we try one more time. That's our fainted mechanic, is just kind of standing still for a second. And then Grovyle takes the time gear, kind of disappears in the middle of nowhere, and we gotta go. Run away! We don't actually run away that fast. This is a little bit later on. We go into Crystal Cave as the next location after a little bit of divination. And you'll see here a different strategy that I'm employing because of how terrified I am of opponents. I take an item that I'm able to throw and quite literally throw it in dark hallways. It sounds kind of weird, I know, but the cool thing about different items like Iron Thorns and Sticks and other cool things like that is that when you throw them, they'll go in a straight line for a distance of time. I'm not 100% sure how many blocks it is, but it's a fair number of blocks. Or tiles, I guess is the best way to describe it. And if there are any foes in the way, then they'll be hit, so I'll know that there is a foe there. Speaking of foes, Graveler using Rollout, again, another multi-hit move, not ideal. Crystal Cave, another one of these dungeons, and we're getting really to that point where training is key. Being the level that I am isn't exactly ideal, but we can take advantage of the fact that 2 of the 3 members on the team, Skuntank being the only one that can't, could go on water, which is definitely nice when it comes to traveling purposes. And you'll see later on in the run as well where I really am able to take advantage of the fact that I don't have to follow the path that the dungeon gives me. I can use the different aspects and the terrain to take advantage of movement and moving around and everything like that. You can see here, Golem, Rock Blast, another multi-hit move, knocks us out. Able to use a Reviver Seed to recover, that is kind of only temporary. As you can see here, that Rock Blast takes us out for good, because multi-hit moves suck when you're going up against them. So you can see here, more training is done here, the Dragon Maze being the key spot where I'm going to do this. We have to level up at this point. Being level 25 with the team that we are and the moveset that we have isn't exactly ideal. There haven't been a lot of TMs that have been particularly useful either, and so the biggest way that we can improve at this point is kind of training some more. We get to level 26, which is probably good enough after a little bit of leveling up and a little bit of motion here. At least that's what I thought. And then, Graveler here, not ideal. Try my hardest, not able to do it. Probably should have smokescreen there, but didn't instead. Crystal Cave, once again, except this time it's a monster house. Oh, the joys of monster houses. This is actually a fun situation that I want to share and how this battle eventually worked out. So it's a lot of planning involved with monster houses, because as you can tell by the fact that it's a monster house, it's a giant group of Pokemon, and all of them being rock type is not great for my friend Zubat here. So able to seal all the opponents there and then make a decoy out of one of the opponents before we start booking it. We start running after, basically running away, trying to avoid all of the opponents, or at least get to the point where we're able to go a little bit easier, we're able to fight a little bit better. Eventually are able to get to this point here, get into this situation where Zubat is basically kind of incentivized to move out of the way here. And you can see after a lot of deliberation here, I'm able to make it so that we basically filter them all in from one avenue and start just knocking them out one after one. So as soon as one goes down, the next one goes up. I'm trying to get Skuntank to stay still, and it's not. So I have to literally force it to stay still. Able to do so there. Leech Life being a great move all of a sudden. Despite the fact this was prior to the changes. Using the Luminous Orb is able to help us figure out where opponents are and able to take advantage of how to deal with them. And you can see the vast number that are in that center area that we just came out of. Skuntank decides to pick a fight. Not ideal, but we'll work with it. More fighting, more dealing, more damage dealt here. The cool thing about monster houses, at least, is that they usually have good items, so we try to take advantage of that as well. And again, just more filtering out of the opponents one at a time, step by step, trying to get through everybody, and being able to defeat everybody going forward. Using all of our moves and all of our abilities. Able to learn some new moves here, though Haze is not exactly ideal for what our plan is here. And we can see we're starting to get to the point where all the stats are starting increasing. There are now some levels that actually do that. While Skuntank, you'll notice, maybe eventually, I'm not sure if Skuntank levels up in this battle, you'll notice Skuntank doesn't exactly have that same privilege. But eventually, we get through, move on to the next floor, and get to this point here, where we have to face Grovyle. Now, fun fact about this Grovyle battle, you don't have to win. If you win or lose, the end result is the exact same. Nevertheless, I'm trying to win also because, it feels right. It feels like we should win the battles that we face. And this is technically a boss battle, even if there is no real consequence in it. So a lot of manipulation, making sure that Grovyle is going towards us, and a little bit of action later. Again, similar sort of strategy. I'm smoke screening. Skuntank is going to use Screech and then Scratch. Zubat is just going to use whatever super effective moves it has. And trust me, funnily enough, Zubat has a lot of them, right? Set up with Leech Life and Air Cutter and a number of other moves that are really beneficial here. And the Screech defense drops are really helpful as well. So this Grovyle fight, actually pretty straightforward, pretty easy. I remember the first few times I played through this game, I tend to start off with Mudkip as my starter. It makes, it's very tough because one, Leaf Blade or equivalent grass type move is eventually able to just knock me out easily. But here in this setup, this is a fun situation where our boss battle situation and the team that we have is actually beneficial against the boss. Also, Dustnoir and Grovyle have a brief conversation before they vamoose out of there. The rest of the guild comes to save us and the rest of us here. Skuntank has been stuck in that pose for about 15 minutes here. Here's another victory. Want to share the fact that I had multiple victories. At the same time, you can see Skuntank literally running away. But the Ludicolo, being the Kool-Aid man, effectively comes in, enjoying the fact that we have won something else. A lot of these TMs are very good in any other aspect, but for our team, it wasn't particularly great. Like Energy Ball is interesting. This is actually a little bit later. We had multiple wins. I don't think these were they back to back? They might have been back to back or very close to it. You can check it out again, entire playthrough down in the description below. It's a few hours long, but it's also sped up, so you don't have to, go through everything at the entire pace that I was going through it. Protein there, that's very useful as well. We're reaching the point now where Skuntank is kind of not necessary, and for those of us that have played through the game, you'll know why, and for those of us that have decided to avoid the fact that there was a spoiler mentioned previously, well, welcome to halfway through the game, where Dustnoir has finally captured Grovyle, and they're about to head back to the future, no pun intended. A lot of people, of course, Grovyle, being the criminal that they are, is eventually going to go back to the future here. Dustnoir, being a Pokemon of the future, should be good. All is good here. They're going to return back to the future. All's fine and dandy, as we know. Time gears are going to go back to their rightful place. The story is about to end, I say, knowing full well that that's not the case. Sableye kicks Grovyle into the dimensional portal. And after this moment here, we're good. We're cool. And then Dustnoir grabs us, brings us in the portal. Yeah, we're going to the future. No Skuntank with us. It's just us, which might be beneficial actually against Skuntank. While pretty good at the ability to lower defenses and of course being an extra body, which is very important. Not great. Animations mention again Zubat and Coughing. Neither of them are tied up. You can see that, right? Zubat's literally flapping its wings. Coughing is floating over the wiring and everything. And despite all of that, Sableye and Dustnoir are like, nope, that seems secure enough. You'd think they'd tie the wings down, or at least make sure that Coughing doesn't just float out of here, which makes this dialogue even more interesting here. Where Grovyle's like, hey guys, do you need help to get out of these wires and cables and stuff? And we're just like, I mean, yes, but I could just float, right? Dustnoir would probably capture me immediately afterwards, but I'm not tied down. And I found this interesting as well. And it's like, Grovyle still arguing oh, the Fury swipes and they'll be able to cut the wires and everything, and the ropes. And you can see here, I don't even think we're getting damaged or anything. The wires get cut below us, and then we do a regular attack to vamoose ourselves out of here. Very interesting part of the game as well, where we're in the future and we're kind of stuck here, having to find our way back out. We eventually flee with Grovyle, and basically build our own path. But there are a few mentions, a few different items here. Big thing, this is where I was really talking about the terrain thing. We don't have to follow the rules of the dungeon at all. And these dungeons are notorious for being long, windy paths with very small rooms in each of the sides of the map. As you can see here, I'm just walking from room to room. We don't have to follow those paths. We can literally go around the map looking for the staircase as opposed to trying to deal with the pathway itself. This makes it extremely beneficial to us because that significantly saves time, energy, and everything like that. Unfortunately, though, we eventually reach areas like Dusk Hill where there are walls and we can't quite do the exact same thing in that pathway. But nevertheless, that dungeon was particularly fun to go through because I could just spin around in circles until I eventually found a way out of here. Dusk Hill itself, again, a host of many poison, ghost, and dark types. So not ideal. We have some moves that are able to help us out, and we are level 29 at this point, which is pretty solid. A lot of the difficulty really came when going up against those ground dungeons that we were talking about earlier. Now that we've not quite over leveled, but improved ourselves, we've been able to do well. Though, as you can see here, double ancient power, one of them being boosted, not helpful as well. Here's a monster house, very fun moment here where I kind of just stall as we come on selected. Use the Spurn Orb, make everybody vamos out of here. And now I have learned from my previous mistakes. I could have gone for items, but I decided to go for progress. And we move forward here for the next boss battle. Grovyle's been captured, and all that's left is a small rock. That's not just anyone, that's Spiritomb. Oh yes, 108 spirits combined to create a foe with no weaknesses, because again, the fairy type, not in this game. So, what is the pathway here? What do you do? Well, we kind of just throw stuff. Yeah, no, seriously. We kind of throw stuff. The Ominous Wind doesn't really help, but Spiritomb eventually will come towards us. And then at that point, we're set. The moment that you walk near us, we have Xi Seeds, we have Smokescreen, we have Assurance, we've got Zubat with just a whole host of different moves that are able to do a lot of damage, and eventually are able to win our way here. Confused Ray, Bite doing a lot of damage as well. The Assurance, we're finally below that half point, and finishing it off with a crit there. Flash forward some more because now we've got 4 members, 2 of them being really powerful in Grovyle and Celebi. Celebi being the perfect assist Pokemon and Grovyle being a powerhouse. Like Grovyle's Leaf Blade does a lot of damage. And then along with that, it's us 2. We're doing a lot of things as well. But as we reach the end of the area where we're eventually going to be able to go back to our own time period, Dialga shows up and is like, hey, nah, I know I'm corrupted. And so as a result, I'm going to try to corrupt you by basically making you give up. Primal Dialga. You know, before Primal Groudon, before Primal Kyogre, there was Primal Dialga. Grovyle gives up. There's a member. There's a friend. This is the fun part. The partner is in the past. Oh, wait. The partner is a human who has a dimensional scream. That's us. His name is Coughing, which goes to make me question, what human would name their child Coughing? And spelled Coughing, like the Pokemon. Like, it's just... Dustnoir, sorry. Dustnoir's going to go through a whole flashback sequence here where he's like, oh, I figured it out. It's this guy, and we brought him to the future so that I could get rid of him. Okay, you and I, let's talk about this real quick. Naming your kid Coughing. Would you? Because I feel like that's a no for a number of reasons. One, Coughing as the actual version of Coughing, like C-O-U, that feels like a terrible name. Coughing, the Pokemon name, is even worse. I mean, why would you name yourself after a Pokemon, and why Coughing of all the Pokemon, especially with the name and then the fact it's poison type, and frankly, there's a lot of Pokedex entries about Coughing that aren't exactly ideal. Naming your kid Coughing. But maybe that's a Pokemon universe thing, not 100% sure about that. Celebi is able to transport us about 4 millimeters away from the passage of time. We dive in, Celebi vamooses, and we are successful in returning back to our own time period. Primal Dialga must have been real annoyed by that. We're eventually able to get to back to our time after a little bit of reconciliation and clarification. We reached Three Shroud Forest, where the first time gear that Grovyle stole was. Turns out Grovyle's a good guy. Dustnoir's a bad guy, by the way, for some reason, if you missed that. Grovyle, here, first time geared. It's there. It's glowing and everything. But despite that, nothing's really happening. Leaves are stuck in place. Time has stopped. Grovyle just kind of snatches it at that point, and time is just getting destroyed. It's clear now that the time gears aren't having much effect. And so they've got to be collected quickly, and we have to find our way to the Hidden Land, a location that, of course, is hidden. But we got to find it all the same. We have to return back to the guild. It's weird. And Zubat brings up a good point. Gotta tell everybody the truth. Hello, we're back. The football belongs to... Oh my gosh, it's Zubat. I feel this scene is interesting. Because again, all Pokemon look the same. So how does Diglett know which Zubat it is? Is it us or the OG Team Skull Zubat? Either way, I'm hoping it's us because Diglett was so emotional, or maybe Diglett just really liked Zubat and coughing from Team Skull. I'm not sure what exactly that situation is. Speaking of Team Skull, here's the OG Team Skull, the Cha-Ha-Ha version of Team Skull, that decided to have a conversation with Torkoal to find out about the Hidden Land, because they have the idea of exploring it, despite the fact that we have the Relic Fragment, which is the only way that you'll be able to get to the Hidden Land. We eventually find out that it's in this location here, but Team Skull returning one last time to re-steal the Relic Fragment that they stole way back at Beach Cave. Shoutout's like, oh no, I was so worried about you. And then Team Skull OG is like, nah, bro, we're the bad guys. Bye. They kind of remind me of the actual Team Skull in the Alola version, because they're bad guys that aren't really good at being bad. And also Shoutout just kind of runs away in anger. We go forward. It's another boss battle at the end of this location at the Brine Cave Pit. After a few moments here, we get the final scene, I believe, in the game with Team Skull. They actually, I don't believe, show up in the post-game, where they are knocked out here after being defeated by the bandits that are the boss battle that's coming up. And Skuntank, after a couple of moments, we're nice Zubats, we're nice Coughings. They're not nice Zubats and nice Coughings. Skuntank decides, let me be nice for once. I'm going to give you back your Relic Fragment and then disappear for the rest of the game, which is, you know, an interesting choice. I found it interesting that Team Skull was not a fightable opponent in the same way that other bad guy teams in the Mystery Dungeon franchise are. But I digress. It's time for a boss battle, an interesting one at that, where they're on the roof. It's two Omastars and the Kabutops. Shoutout saves us, although we still have to fight them anyway. As you can see here, Shoutout just takes the blow. And now it's time for the boss battle here. This is an interesting one. I tend to have trouble with this, but again, that's usually with my normal setup here. You might have noticed the different moves that Zubat had, Poison Fang, Giga Drain, among others. We eventually, finally, after a long time, got some interesting TMs that were beneficial to us and to Zubat in particular. I really wanted Zubat to be the attacker, while I continued to be the support guy with Smokescreen. I also have Thunderbolt, mainly for the ability to have that type diversity in movements. We were able to boost our stats so much with the abilities of IQ skills and gummies and all that sort of stuff that worrying about stab isn't that important. It's really just about having the variety of different types, and my ability with Thunderbolt and then Giga Drain with both of us makes this battle significantly easier. Flash forward a bit more, Grovyle's back with us, the Hidden Land. At this point, Skuntank on Team Skull new version is basically on the bench cheering us on. After a while, it turned into a situation where we couldn't bring partners, and also Skuntank was very behind when it came to levels. Fun fact, you can just go back to Treasure Town when you reach the Hidden Land. There's no, nothing preventing you from doing so. You're able to just walk back and then do some training. There's some fun conversations that you can have with everybody. Here's a monster house. This is always very fun. I had to worry about this. But the Fofir Orb makes everybody terrified, and they'll start running away for a moment, which is great, except the stairs are in this area. Also in the Bomb of Snow, doing the hail thing. That trap there made this incredibly complicated, because now we were confused and had to find a way to get to the stairs before everybody got unafraid. As you'll see, everybody starts to regain their consciousness right there, which made this not ideal. But the ability of the Petrify Orb right here makes everybody petrified and unable to move. And as long as my allies here didn't attack, we're good. And luckily, none of them attacked. Though Hail does make everybody pause for a split second here. Flash forward some more. Dustnoir is back. Yeah, we just cut through there. Dustnoir is back. This is another boss battle where we face off against Dustnoir and all the Sableye, all 6 of them. So this is now a 7-on-3 battle. This was one that was terrible if you remember the Metronome challenge that I did a long time ago, where I tried to beat Pokemon Explorers of Sky with only Metronome. This battle was a pain to do because with Metronome I can't control everything, and it was frankly extremely complicated. Here, slightly easier in that I didn't have a breakdown at certain points because of how complicated it was. The XI seed on Dustnoir, there was a number of other issues, not issues, another other restrictions on that challenge as well that this challenge doesn't really have, right? There's no item restrictions. The only rule is just use Team Skull and any forced members like Grovyle, for example, on the team. And the ability of having Reviver Seeds and other items like that are incredibly beneficial as well. Confuse Ray by Zubat is just a more powerful supersonic in that it's more likely to hit, and our ability to constantly do damage with Grovyle's powerful moves are decent moveset. While Sableye don't have any weaknesses in this game, they aren't particularly high leveled, and so we were able to take full advantage of that here. Confusing most of them, I'm starting to throw rocks at Dustnoir just to stall things out, while the Sableye, hopefully, the strategy that I had was that we would stick here. The Sableye don't really have moves that can do distance things. It's not like Ominous Wind or anything like that. So eventually they would get unconfused and start running at us. Dustnoir here, for example, eventually starts running back at us once it stopped having the XI effect. More damage here. The Assurance, the fun thing about the boss battles here, Assurance will do significant damage on big bosses because their health is actually huge enough where they go down to half and we're able to cut them down even more and eventually are able to beat that battle here. Dustnoir and Grovyle leave off to do their own things. I'm being really bland about that because I'm still trying to keep this somewhat spoiler-free despite the fact that you're at this point. We reach the top, Zubat, Coughing, members of Team Skull, about to save the day, only to face the final boss of the main series. It's Dialga, not quite Primal Dialga. I've been saying Dialga, you know the gist. Not quite Primal, but still a foe that we have to face, and sure enough, we have to face Dialga here. What do we do? What is our setup here? It's Coughing and Zubat versus Dialga. Start off with a Violent Seed on both sides here to boost our attack and special attack. There's a Roar of Time that knocks both of us out, but the pause is effective. The pause is important because we're able to move up to Dialga rather than worry about Dialga coming to us. And we can take full advantage of the ability to start doing some significant damage here. We are able to petrify Dialga there. The Ancient Power, not ideal. The Roar of Time, not ideal as well, though the miss on Zubat, very clutch. We only have to use one Reviver Seed instead of two. Now I'm really thinking about how we're going to approach this. Thunderbolt does some significant damage. Giga Drain does some significant damage, despite the fact that it was paused. You can see Dragon Claw right there did a lot of damage. Throw the Vile Seed to lower the defense and special defense significantly, and now it's all about just stalling it out. Got to use the Xi Seed. Dialga, boosted speed, basically just runs and starts moving around. No longer cross-eyed, so it comes to us. Metal Claw knocks us out. We're running out of Reviver Seeds. We've only got the one at this point. Sleep Seed now, trying to see if we can add additional moves on our counter. Metal Claw knocks out Zubat. We're out of Reviver Seeds now. It's all or nothing here. Orbs don't really work, if I remember correctly, on boss battles. And so now, Smokescreen here. It's a Whiffer. Poison Fang. Try again. What are we going to do here? We're going to sludge from this point or Assurance? I'm wondering if we're at that point. We're below half health because we're doing significant damage here. The Giga Drain, recover from Whiffer. It does not knock me out with the Ancient Power. That gives me the opportunity to Smokescreen, and the final damage dealt by Zubat means that we win this challenge. We have beaten the entire main series game with Team Skull, and specifically the not gooder members of Team Skull. Zubat's able to put in the time gears, and we are successful in our task. We're able to beat Dialga. We're able to beat this entire run with Team Skull saving the day. Team Skull no longer the villains. Nay, they are both the villains and the heroes. They are the anti-heroes if you average out the Coughing Zubat contributions in this game as it is here. I like to leave the ending here because this ending, although it's sped up and I'm not doing the voice acting thing like I did a year and a half ago or 2 years ago when I did the Metronome Only challenge, looking back on that, I'm not going to say it's cringe. It's kind of cringe, I'm not going to lie. But it's cool nevertheless. We eventually disappear because we're a human from the future, and we changed the future, so I can't exist. Zubat, all by themselves. What a terrible situation here. Eventually, return back, everybody. Joy is here. This is another moment to look at the animations a little bit. Zubat, not exactly using a lot of different animations, but we'll see here at this very end moment a few months later. After all the troubles and all the tribulations, all the problems, we were ultimately successful in our task. Here's a little flashback sequence here that we'll eventually get right here where Coughing and Zubat, where Team Skull began from the mere moments of where Zubat was stolen from by another Zubat. to a variety of other issues. Team Skull victorious. They saved the day. Tell this to the Alolan Team Skull, to all the other Team Skulls out there. We've done it all. We succeeded. And then this is the crying animation where it's kind of just pausing out there. Again, it's a fun thing here. It's very funny. We succeed. We finished the adventure. Also, you could see here all the different members that we were able to recruit. Multiple Shellos, among other items. I think that's 20 different members, if I'm not mistaken. These are the final stats for Coughing and for Zubat. You can see the moves as well, all the different IQ skills that we had. I took full advantage of the drinks and everything like that to succeed in this challenge, because again, this wasn't really a challenge so much as it was just kind of a run through with Team Skull. Give them the opportunity to save the day as opposed to being the villains in this game, and have an opportunity to use Coughing and Zubat in this game, which is, of course, not how it normally goes. You don't normally get them as the starters or playable characters until later on. That is ending this challenge here. I like to leave the credit sequence on as well. Just to, of course, give shout outs to everybody there. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, comment, support the channel in any way, shape, or form that you do. If you have any suggestions for what you think would be an interesting challenge to go through, go ahead and leave it in the comment section down below. I'm interested to play through this game or other games with other members, maybe, potentially. If you have any interesting challenge ideas, feel free to give the rule set and everything that you want to add there restriction-wise down below as well. I'm happy to go through it and check it out. Thank you very much for listening, watching, and supporting in any way, shape, or form that you do. Thank you for supporting the channel and everything that we've done since the last challenge. We've grown significantly as well, so I'm very excited for the future of this channel and the expectations going forward. That about wraps it up here. I'm going to leave the music off and leave everything out here. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, watching, and supporting in any way, shape, or form that you do. Until next time, everyone, take care.